As we now get into the second part of our discussion tonight, where I am joined by Pius Masai, who is the Deputy Director at the National Disaster Management Unit, to discuss the state of preparedness in the country to tackle and respond to disasters, as well as how prepared we are for the same. So thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we're having this discussion in light of that helicopter crash that took place this morning in Nakuru. And the first question really is, and you must have seen a lot of this, Pius. First of all, thank you for joining us this evening. The question about the response time. The crash took place at about just after 6 o'clock in the morning, and up to 1 o'clock, the rescue mission, which had turned to a recovery mission, had not begun. Why did it take that long?
Actually, Madam, thank you for calling me in the studio. It is an unfortunate incident that it happened, as you have heard, a chopper crashing inside Lake Naivasha. And you know the location of Lake Naivasha is within the national park. And as you're aware that emergencies occur anytime. You may not know when it may occur, and when it occurs, it requires response by the local people. And as you're aware that during the incident time, as said, it was in the morning, and as a practice and through incident management, it is the local community first who will be able to notice an incident and support the incident first. If they're incapacitated, you realize that you have put the community, the sub-county, and then a county. If the county will be incapacitated, you realize that they'll call for the national resources. And actually, according to the information you have heard, and where the helicopter crashed, it is difficult because of the locality and the safety of anyone who would like to save the victims. It's unfortunate that they were not saved on time because of an emergency. And if you heard that an emergency is an incident, when it occurs that in that time the victims themselves, they may be incapacitated and unable to assist themselves. And it happens in seconds. But I appreciate rescue efforts which are ongoing, and the response, the way it happens. You know, like when we got information earlier on that it had happened, this was the first time that it was even easy to mobilize our choppers very fast. And because of weather, you know, choppers move because of weather. People responded, the local people, of course, but you understand, rescuing people in water is not an easy thing. It required, if there were already vessels inside the water, could be easy. But as you have heard, activities happening along Naivasha, Lake Naivasha, we have heard that there were no vessels inside the water at that time, as opposed to lakes like Lake Naivasha.
Which brings me to my next question, Mr. Masai, because this Lake Nakuru National Park is a tourist site.
Yes.
And anything can happen. There's a lot, an influx of, you know, tourists going to that place. What is the state of preparedness there? And maybe you can also speak to us about the structure of this response from the national level. You speak about the location and how it made it difficult to respond. How empowered are local levels of response?
You have, as you have said, the Lake Nakuru is a tourist site, and issues of disasters is a shared responsibility between the national and county government. And as you are aware that, and I know, like the Nakuru County government have vessels, but I was not aware that they don't have vessels in Lake Nakuru, but I know they have them in Lake Naivasha because I've used it before. And it's a responsibility of the county government to use all hazard plan and to come up with a plan that will assist them to identify hazards, the expected hazards, risks, and resources that they need to mobilize. And as for this incident, as you have heard, they had vessels, but vessels were in Lake Naivasha. And for us, when we got information, we communicated, we sent a police chopper very fast, but you know the weather, the police chopper cannot just move, the choppers don't just move, they move by the weather. And it arrived, of course, time, not at one, the way you're saying, it was quite early. And I'm the one who coordinated that chopper, in fact, for it to proceed.
But what was needed was the speedboats to help the divers get into the water.
You see, when it arrived there, it found the county disaster team, which were ready to assist locate. And in fact, it happened. Only that when they located the site, I understand that they located an area where there's a spill of oil. And you know, Lake Naivasha is dirty water, it's not clean water. As they located the site, they waited for the boats which arrived from Lake Naivasha, and they did reconnaissance whereby they identified an area where there was an oil spill. And as you're aware that Lake Naivasha is not clean water, it's dirty water. And in dirty water, you cannot see what's inside. So when we realized so, we also activated through the National Disaster Preparedness Center to bring the Kenyan Defense Forces, Kenya Navy, who arrived also after some time, you know, getting them from Mombasa to Nakuru. It's a distance, of course, but they managed to come. But once they started operations, as you have heard, they have done it towards in the evening, but Lake Nakuru has dirty water. And through dirty water, you cannot see what is down inside the lake. And as you have heard that when the chopper crashed inside the lake, it went down and is not seen upward. So when water is dirty and the chopper is down there, and when the divers go around checking, if the water is dirty, it's not easy to see it. So it will take quite some time, and that's why we have called off the operations.
All right.
And you have heard that they'll start, or they will continue with operation in the morning and see how they can retrieve the victims and save, and also the chopper, which is possible.
Okay, let's just look at it this way, Mr. Masai, because this particular incident has really caused a lot of reactions from Kenya. You must have seen it on social media, and just bringing into focus all the other disasters that have happened before. And it's crucial that we have this conversation at a national level to see whether we need to evaluate our state of preparedness, because for this particular incident, the Kenya Navy divers had to come from Mombasa.
Yes.
The Kenya Police Emergency Unit had to come from Nairobi.
Yes.
And the speedboats had to come from Lake Naivasha.
It happens. So.
If, in the event that there was any survivors in that particular incident, then time was not really going to work to save their lives. What does this kind of situation paint to you as somebody who's in charge of disaster response?
You know, emergencies vary from one to another. And as you're aware that any emergencies inside water is not an easy operation. It's a matter of safety for all, including those responders and the victims. And as you are told, when it happened, people saw it happening. But saving people in water, it requires the right skill. And also you are aware that Lake Nakuru, we have got animals, wild animals, in the forest and inside water.
Does it mean
so what matters? Safety first of the responders.
That's true.
They were there on time.
That's true.
But it's a skill and required the right equipment. And the most important thing is safety for that responder to enter that water.
And I appreciate
and as you saw, many people have been wanting to do more, but it's a skill.
Right. And I appreciate that. And the safety of... we always speak about safety first. And
it's not a matter of rushing,
important.
But safety.
But does it mean, because there is two aspects of disasters, there's preparedness and there's management, there's response. Does it mean that we had not forethought this particular kind of a disaster? Because there are a number of lakes around, you know, Nakuru County. There's Lake Elementaita, there's Lake Naivasha, there's Oloiden, a number of them, really. Are these kind of scenarios, or maybe you can speak to us about how prepared we are for both natural occurring disasters and this kind of, you know, human kind of caused disasters. How prepared do you feel we are, and are there specific challenges?
You know, issues of disaster and emergencies, they require all community approach. And is you aware that you cannot know what will happen tomorrow, and that's why through the national plans, we have a national plans that guides the county governments to come out with their own plans. And it's through their own specific plans, they need to have their own plans and standard operating procedures. They need to identify equipments they require as compare the hazards and risks that may affect them within their own specific county. And they need to have a capacity from the local people and the stakeholders in terms of government agencies and even private agencies. As you are aware, that it's a multi-agency approach whereby it's about all of us. It's not about one entity. I appreciate them what they have done. And as you are aware that we are doing the best, but how best it is, it matters with the hazard that affects us, like the one that there's occurred in Lake Nakuru.
Okay, so the counties also have an onus to, really build up on their...
They have a responsibility, the counties themselves, because they need to have their own plans. And in fact, not from the county level alone, starting from the community level. It's up the community level themselves, they need also to understand that they need to ask the county governments to know the level of preparedness. And it's through the preparedness, they'll have the plans and sensitize all stakeholders. It's about multi-agency. It's not one entity. And so, as you are aware, like today, I did not go to Nakuru because I sent a chopper through the activation, and I coordinated people on the ground to locate the incident site as we are still coordinating the people, the Kenya Navy people to come immediately, of course. And even on the ground, we had local divers. But the local divers, they don't have the equipment. So it informs us to improve the level of preparedness, not only in Lake Nakuru or Nakuru County, but all counties. So it is important that lesson learned informs us that we should address the incidents that have happened, assisting us to address the future. In that, we need more preparedness, because SASA is about all phases. We need to focus so much, 80% on prevention, mitigation, and preparedness, 20% on response and recovery. And also you're aware that we need also to have good laws, legal framework, whereby the county government will have resources, and resources requires the act. If the act, the parliament will approve will pass the law. The policy was signed by the former minister. That's important. We have national plans. But also we need to have the county, the Disaster Act being in place, in that...
what would it change in terms of what is happening now, and what would be ideal should that come to pass?
It will change many things, because some counties have already disaster acts, of course. But if the disaster law is in place, it will inform the counties and compel them to do certain things in the preparedness. They'll have budget to have the equipment. Because like in Nakuru County, they had all the multi-agency responders who responded on time. But what were they lacking? Is the equipment. Because if you respond as they responded early enough and communicate to us, what they were lacking is equipment to use to retrieve the victims. So what's important is all counties need to be prepared, because they are not equal. What affects Garissa is not what affects Kisumu or affects a county like Uasin Gishu. So they're different. They're unique in nature. Yes.
And what is coming out is that this actually, our preparedness and response to disasters needs to become more of a priority than it is now, and have more political will. But as a unit, are you agitating for this, or what are you doing to increase that kind of political favor and will, or to have that particular act you speak about come to pass?
I appreciate the current government, because coming from the West Gate, the JKA fire, is whereby the national plans were established by stakeholders and signed by the Interior CS, which brought order in this country. And it's through those plans that they have guided the county governments, and we have programs whereby stakeholders are sensitizing the populations that national disaster management and emergency is a responsibility for everyone. It's not about one entity. Okay, the National Police Service provides leadership, and I appreciate the Inspector General. He normally gives us all resources we need all the time and timely. Like today, you see, when we said, let the chopper go quickly to search and rescue operation, I got it on time. And our officers were already on the ground. So in terms of
you would
support,
appreciate that for this particular search, or whether it was recovery already a mission then, that you would get such a thing as a chopper as fast as possible, but it's really as ineffective as it can be in that kind of particular rescue mission.
Let me tell you, and I've said this before, it depends what kind of hazard you're addressing. If it was just a normal incident on land, it's easy. But this is about water. And as we have heard, we have heard even the divers coming. They have been there. Right. And this happens even all over the world. We have heard this in many instances in the world. We know. It's not about Kenya. What is important is safety. It's not a matter of rushing inside. It's not like I've told you that the early search and rescue operation, they did the wrecking. They saw a fuel spill on top of the lake, but you know it's moving, wide scale. It's not located on one side. And the water is dirty. Diving in dirty water, even just observing, because in search and rescue, first of all, you observe. Through observation, you can see. Right. And if you don't see, then you need to do pole fishing, survey, and also diving. And through diving, you suggest areas according to experience from people living nearby the lake. Like the WS people are there. The Kenya wildlife people assisting the operation by assisting to locate areas possible that divers could locate. But you understand, because of dirty waters, the search has been suspended until tomorrow morning. And I believe tomorrow morning, when they start this operation, we'll retrieve our victims, although because of time, we may not get them alive. It's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Yes. And I think what many Kenyans really are agitating for is that perhaps there could have been a life saved. And the speed is the issue here that also Kenyans want to see is being appreciated by the authorities in charge. And to also understand, should this be an unfortunate lesson, what lessons are being learned for the next, unfortunately, possible similarly incident that would happen? Have we learned enough? Because the problem would be if we keep getting into disasters and keep just showing the face of unpreparedness. Which brings me to my question of speaking about how we are comparing ourselves with the rest of the world in terms of best practices in disaster response. How would you rate where we are? Are we benchmarking, particularly to do with the speed and rapid response? Okay, comparing to where you came from, we are trying, and we can do better than this. The challenges sometimes is because of equipment and some special skills. And as you have said, and we have said before, it's important that we use the lesson learned to address the future. Just think about what happened today morning, early morning, about the bus incident towards Lodwar. And we have been advising people. It's unfortunate that the bus had an accident, but we have been advising people if they see, if the driver comes nearby a water, a lager or a place full of water, should not drive inside. But unfortunately, so what happened? A bus on the Kitale to Lodwar road, being submerged in water and people near drowning. Lucky enough, when the bus was near drowning, many people swam for safety, and a few also managed to climb on top of the side of the bus and communicated. And rescuers arrived on time. We got information, of course, and they gave support as much as they could do to save lives. So what you are trying to say, we know we are having rains, not even in Kenya, even in our neighbors. Right. And water will flow to low areas. Right. And when it happens, such incidents may happen. So it's important that we are talking about that bus incident. Can we talk about the same thing tomorrow? If people are responsible, it's important for all of us to be responsible. Because the passengers are equally charged to be responsible, to tell the driver, please don't drive inside here if they're seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a unit, in such a case where you speak about what even has been forecast by the Met Department, that there would be heavy rains, there would be floods in certain areas, are you also charged with the responsibility of, you know, ensuring this information trickles down in an effective manner, which means how is this information turning into particular specific actions, if it means drivers should not use particular routes or something like that?
Actually, Madam, we issued even an early warning for this. It was all over the Met, even I did it myself. Informing drivers, when there's a weather forecast from the Met, they circulate. It's an open information, we discuss stakeholders, and share it all over. But what matters is how one uses the information.
Right.
You know, it's important that we need all of us to be responsible in that we don't repeat just simple mistakes that cause life, which is not good. So we did our best as a stakeholder and other stakeholders, whereby they have gone with activity to sensitize, and it's still ongoing. But what's important is when you get information, like now I'm talking, we are discussing here, how many people are listening? And those who are listening, you'll find some of them tomorrow may become victims of circumstances because of an attitude. So what's important is we need to all of us ensure that safety begins with me and you. It's not a matter of just trying or rashness. Just look about the building collapse. We are all the time responding to building collapse and also saving people from near collapsed building. Why?
And this information is out for,
it's out
for buildings that are not safe for
we have professionals, we have authorities, you are responsible. You understand? Like the issue of the aircraft, we have got the people who are doing the investigation from relevant authorities. They'll come out to reason as to why that accident occurred. It's an unfortunate incident. For road traffic accident, is the traffic police need to come out with their report and findings and actions to what that accident happened. You know, all like the building collapse, the same. Or, you know, what's important is everyone has a responsibility to the public, the building owners, transport owners. You see, there are safety measures, but some instances like the air crash is not easy. You know, you cannot sometimes notice that it's going to crash. So that you can prepare even to open doors, get the floaters, and go for safety. It's not easy. That's what I'm saying. It's through investigation that will reveal how that chopper crashed. And it's not good for people circulating information that they're speculating who is involved. It's not easy. You know, when a chopper leaves, is packing to a certain destination, and there is a stopover somewhere, for example, you may not give proper information as to who is on board. So the best practice is people need to be calm, allow the rescue operation to continue, and we'll see what will come out of the rescue operations. It will tell us who is really possible. We may be saying that some people are involved and yet they are safe somewhere. It has happened somewhere in some instances.
So we cannot confirm the names that we already
What's important as a best practice, you know, it may happen miraculous that something happens, some happens differently. Maybe this is something different. So what's important is us to say that it's suspected, the way it was announced by us, by the government official, it's suspected that there is an air crash at that location, search and rescue operations ongoing. So we are yet to confirm by seeing what kind of object went into the water and who is involved. I will be happy to hear that the people mentioned are safe somewhere. And that's why, like myself, you have not heard me talking about anybody's name. Because what's important is to carry the search and rescue operation safely and see what it will yield to give us our people, if they're involved inside.
All right.
Sure.
All right. And the bigger question also, just keeping with the question of response. The recent, just about a month, a few weeks ago, the Moi Girls fire,
yes.
which happened on a Saturday morning, 2 a.m.
Yes.
And the response there was up to 2 hours later from when
Yes.
this fire broke out.
Yeah.
And that really beat all possible sense because there's no traffic at that time.
Yes.
And there was all alarms that was raised at that time. So how do you explain that?
It is unfortunate. And we are teaching, we are creating awareness to the public. What we have said is like this, a best practice. When there is fire that you cannot manage, immediately call for the fire brigade and other stakeholders to come and respond. The question is, what time was the fire engine activated from the Nairobi County government? We cannot say that they delayed. What matters is the time that they are activated, because that time there was no traffic jam. So what we are advising the public is that when there is fire burning and you cannot manage it, immediately realize there is fire, call for other people to come and support. Whether they come and find that the fire has been extinguished is better than you delaying and you are saying you're trying to manage and see whether you'll manage. And yet it will cause more damage. So the most important
thing is in such a situation is first to raise the alarm.
First is to identify the problem and raise the alarm. So when you identify the problem and you cannot manage it, you rush for safety first and quickly you raise an alarm calling for people to come and support.
Even before you start attempting to help people who may be trapped in the situation. So call for help first. It's good to have this procedural kind of thought to Kenyans to understand how to respond.
What is important, if there is an incident, the most important thing is find out the type of the incident. Then, when you have known the type of incident, if it's fire incident or a building collapse, then ask yourself, what might be affected in this? By doing a quick scene size-up. It's just observing and doing an estimate quickly, and then ask yourself, who is in charge of this incident? If no one, you take responsibility. And once you take responsibility, you quickly identify objectives. One is calling for help. And then ask yourself, if it's safety, we'll do the safety. If it's security, we'll do the security. If it's about medical, we'll do the medical. And then asking those questions will give you the who is responsible by each and every objective. And that's why you'll say, I'm here at this location, this is happening, and I want the following resources. And that's how the Nakuru people did today morning. Immediately it happened. After some time, the scene sensor, they did this. But you understand, they were on the ground, but they didn't have the equipment. But now it took time for the chopper to go because of the weather. Yes.
All right. And maybe my final question, just keeping with that, because we've already done a bit of information sharing. Yes. Perhaps what are the lines that, or contacts, just for refreshing, that Kenyans can call in case of, such kind of disasters?
When there is any type of emergency in Kenya, it's a responsibility for any person to call 911, 999, or 112. If you call any of those numbers, you'll get a response. But sometimes you realize that those lines, there are people waiting for those responses. But what happens sometimes, there are thousands of calls on traffic. Understand? So sometimes you may be calling and you delay. Yeah, because if 1,000 people are calling at a time, your call may delay. But it's important to know those numbers. You can activate them.
That is not an excuse for numbers that are not working.
They're working.
All right. Okay, many thanks for joining us. Pius Masai, Deputy Director at the National Disaster Management Unit. And of course, as all Kenyans, all hoping that the response would be faster and that best practices would be reached, whatever it takes to get there. Many thanks for joining us tonight. And it is with that we wind up this edition of KTN Weekend Prime. Many thanks for staying with us all through from the start at 9 p.m. And right now, I want to wish you a splendid night and a blessed weekend ahead. My name is Sharon Momanyi. God bless.